Now let's talk about the ground game strategies here. Let's first talk about number one in the polls, former President Donald Trump. As we've been saying for months, really, he's far and away the front runner. Has he been spending a lot of time on the ground in Iowa? Because we know he's facing these legal battles, namely right now in New York.
He is spending more time here than he was. Now, that's definitely less than what the typical candidate is spending here. Some of these candidates are here, 5 out of the 7 days a week, whereas Trump, he has more events that he's doing than he was 5 months ago, 6 months ago, but it's still, it's also, he's going to smaller events. It's not necessarily the big rallies he was doing. He even has two upcoming events this week in Waterloo and in Coralville to talk about committing to caucus. And so it's like he's taking this approach of trying to get people out there to caucus. So don't just say you're going to caucus for me, go and do it. Which I think is an interesting strategy for him to shift on, especially given his confidence in himself by not going to these debates and with his place in the polls. So the fact that he's willing to go to these events for people to come out, show out and caucus for him is interesting.
These are really weak poll numbers for anyone not named Donald Trump. So if you're named perhaps Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, are you noticing anyone changing their ground strategies based on these lackluster numbers?
It's interesting. I think there are some people who are trying to split their time between Iowa and New Hampshire because they maybe feel like they would have a better foothold in New Hampshire than Iowa at this point, but they aren't willing to quite give up here yet. And I look at Nikki Haley for that one specifically. Ron DeSantis doesn't quite want to give up yet. Again, people are trying to split their time right now. But I do have to say it is interesting. Ron DeSantis has completed the full Grassley, as we talked about. The full Grassley being going to all 99 counties in Iowa and getting that face time with people. But I think there's still concern that he's not personable enough. And there's still concern that, he might not be able to work across the aisle enough. So that's kind of an interesting perspective that I've heard from voters who are a little concerned. And other than that, there hasn't been a tremendous game change. We are a month away almost. And, I think it's going to be telling. At the end of the day, DeSantis, it's going to make or break him on caucus night because it's either going to show that he can power through or he's going to lose steam. And that's where we really set the tone for the rest of the primary and caucus season.